Good morning to you all. Welcome for the video conference to disclose the results of the fourth quarter for 2022 from Vittia. This video conference is being recorded, and you can access a replay in the website of the company and also in the official channel in YouTube. The presentation is also available for download. We inform that all participants will only be watching the video conference during the presentation, and then we are going to begin the session of Q&A. When more instructions will be given. Before continuing, I reinforce that the declarations are based in the understandings of the administration from Vittia and the current information is available for the company. These declarations can involve risks and uncertainties in view that they are based on future events, so they depend on circumstances that can or not happen. Investors and analysts and journalists must consider that events related to the macroeconomic environment, the segment, and other factors that can be part of that make these results be different from the ones that we show here. They are present here in this video conference, Mr. Wilson Romanini, CEO, Alexandre Deonero Friso, CFO and Director of RI, and Mr. Henrique Monteiro Ferro, Director of PNDI. Now I would like to pass the floor to Mr. Wilson Romanini, which will make the presentation. Please, Mr. Wilson, begin. Good morning to you all. We are going to talk about the results from the fourth quarter from Vittia. And please, Thiago, could you pass the slides, please? So we can make this communication with the people who are watching us. So talking about Vittia in this last quarter, we had a gross revenue in this segment of biological. This part is inserted in the biodefenders and fertilizers, biological fertilizers. So we had a revenue of 71.9 million. And we have effectively a growth of 25.4% in relation to the fourth quarter of 2021. When we take the total, we have 225.5 million, 36.1% above what we had in 21. And when we go specifically in the line of biopesticides, we have 52.8 million in the fourth quarter of 22, which represents a growth of 34% in relation to the quarter of 21. When we close the year, we have 151.2 million, representing a growth of almost 50% in relation to 21. So the net revenue amounted to 230.2 million. It was a little below to the quarter from 2021. This is due to the fact that we had the process of drought in the beginning of the plantation and also an untrustworthiness that still continues right now in relation to this new government. But when we go to look for the year, we have a growth for 10%. We had 147.5 million. So the net income was 49.3 million. This is 15% more, and this work is due to the incrementation that we did in our biological products. And when we close the year, we have 147.5 million in 2022, which corresponds to almost 40% in relation to 21. The ABI TDA had a little fall, but in the year we have 217.9 billion, which represented a growth of 23.8% more in relation to 21. Our CAPEX has a little downfall in the fourth quarter, but when there is the end of the year, you have a growth of 17.6% in relation to 21. Talking about our performance in the fourth quarter of 22, we continued to accelerate the part of the growth. We focused on the biological projects. We have an important point to highlight there, a greater conservatism of producers in relation to investments, in relation to the Brazilian electoral process. We even feel this in this first quarter that we are living. You have seen that we have land invasions and this causes an uncertainty, but we see clearly that we are going to have a good crop. We talk about the crop period of 24, which is going to be very positive. We also had in the beginning of the plantation a climate stabilization, and this ends up happening to cause a certain reduction in the use of our technologies. And there is an important point to highlight here. What we do not sell in that moment, it happens next. So in the future. So this is part of this market that we live in, which is an industry that is an open sky industry. We have a very important point to highlight talking about the risks and opportunities. So despite having an increase in the costs in the year of 2022, the producer will have a good harvest, and then we will have a profit in his crop season. We have some regions that had a little more problems, mainly in the south part of the country, in relation mainly to Rio Grande do Sul. But in general, we are going to have a super crop here in Brazil. An important point to highlight also is that we begin the year where the inputs for the rural producer, when we talk about the macronutrients that have a great representative, which are NPKs, they had a downfall. And the biopesticides also, mainly biophosphate, that has now a more logic price than we have seen in 2022. So with that, producer enters in the plantation of 23 with a exchange ratio that is very favorable compared to the relationship that they had in 21. So truly, they are going to make a crop and have an interesting result. And automatically, when they notice this, they're going to invest in technologies, additional technologies, and this automatically favors Vittia, which is a company that generates technologies within our agribusiness world. We have a producer that has a perception about the issue of sustainable technology, and this strengthens Vittia, which is a company that is going towards very well placed in this issue of innovations and issues related to sustainability. When we talk about our position, we are constantly increasing our investments, both in our platform, commercial platform, and our PDI platform, R&DI platform, adapting every time for new products, new technologies, new targets with what we have developed in our part of biopesticides. For you to have an idea, we are now having a great volume of foods with a commercial scale, with treatment 100% focused on biological products. The only one that we cannot substitute now is glyphosate. But we are taking this year to take 30 foods between the crops, soy, coffee, considering effectively the defense line, only biological defense line. And an important point to highlight here is that we began to harvest our results, and we are now able to have a great productivity and offer to the producer a lower cost. So when we go to our segment of organominerals, which is a segment that was challenging both in 21 and 22. 21, we had an interesting volume. And now, since we have shown to you, I'm sorry, but now the sound is very low for them. And the price for the materials to produce this product, 22, when we try to create a good equation, thinking effectively in having a balance and do not have this risk, we try to do something aligned between purchase and selling. And we were surprised by the market with substantial cancellations that from what we had previously thought of. So when we entered 23, we created all the possible equations to have a good performance in this sector, but we still have a residue for the inputs that were bought in 22 and that are still in a very high price. What's happening now, but we understand that we reached the end of our exercise of our year with a part of volcano minerals that is much well positioned from what we have seen here in 22. Now I pass the floor to Frizu for him to pass the informations about for you. Good morning to you all. I'm going to talk about the numbers of our performance. Talk about the numbers from the fourth quarter. We had a distinctive performance in the lines. We had a growth in the three main lines of the company, which are our efforts, which are foliar fertilizers, biopesticides, and inoculants. We also had a downfall in the most volume lines, the one with an aggregated value that is smaller, and that ended up failing 2 points. So the first point is the retraction of investment from the part of the producer. And the second point, entering specifically in the two lines of organominerals and soil micronutrients, which are products that had a typical treatment in regards to the pricing due to the war and the lack of inputs. And in this last quarter, we had a important downfall in the price of these products. So we mix in both cases a demand in terms of smaller volume, a downfall in price comparing to the fourth quarter of the previous year. And the logic for produce produce is similar. So we had these three lines with a selling performance that was not very good, but these are lines where we end up having a margin, an aggregated value that is smaller. So later I'm going to comment about this. That's why we counterbalanced this downfall of money, which was in these lines, with the increase in the focus lines, in which we have reached an EBIT almost similar to the previous quarter. And when we had the end of the year, we were able to reach important growths in these three main lines: the foliar fertilizers with 23% of growth, biopesticides with 42%, and inoculants with 26%. The organominerals is one that we have been suffering with the challenges inherent to the dynamics of the war, Ukraine and Russia. We had this from the beginning of the year. So as Wilson said, we had an incrementation in the prices and an expectation that it would have restrictions in the offer of products from Russia's part. And this resulted so that importers would bring the most of products as they can, waiting for to have some kind of interruption. And at the same time, producers would seek a reduction. Since this did not happen, this restriction did not happen, we have reached in a scenario where we had a lot of offer of basic fertilizers in the market and a smaller demand. And this has caused a great stock in the industry. And so this made prices go down very fast. So in the second semester, we see now an instability in prices from the beginning of the year. And now what we imagine is that we are going to have a year without the issue of the war, We are going to have a certain normality in terms of prices in this market, but we still live with some problems from last year. And soil micronutrients is a product that is connected to investments from the producer's side. Last year was where due to the increase of costs, the producer did not invest in this line. And going back to a normality this year, we hope that this grows again. So we close the year having the downfall of the billing. So industrial projects end up being a line that we are not giving a lot of focus. Felt also this movement in prices and demand. And we also hope that this will normalize, but this is a line that we are not focused on regarding growth. It is one that ends up following our volumes of business. So it complements our portfolio. Now going for the next slide, when we enter and to talk about the margins in the part of foliar fertilizers, we had a margin that is lower in the fourth quarter of 22, and that impacted the margin for the year, where we had a loss of 1.5 percentage. When we observe our products within this category for foliar fertilizers and industrial products, we do not see a pressure in the margin in our aggregated value in our technologies, but we saw a margin pressure in the common products connected to this line of industrial products and others, specifically in this fourth quarter. In the part of biological products in the fourth quarter, we had a very small reduction in the margin. Practically, we capped this margin, and in the year, we had a small reduction in the margin. Also, when we enter to talk about the details of our products, they are categorized as biological products. We see many technologies that had maintenance of margin. Some even had an increase in the margin. But in the mix, we had some others that ended up going down a little bit, but we do not see this as a movement of pressure in the margin or deterioration. In some of products, we had a little reduced margin in relation to the last year, but it was not something that is too big in this line. So soil micronutrients, we even had a recovery in the margin despite the downfall billing. We have been disciplined in this line, doing healthy business for the company. And lastly, the part of soil conditioners and organominerals that we have been commenting in the quarters, the dynamics that they have. So it was a challenging year. The fourth quarter has shown that it was one of the worst moments where we had this downfall in the price comparatively with the other year. And at the same time, there was also a repressed demand. So that's why we had a bad performance in this gross margin that was not what we wanted to have for this line. The low volume of sales, we were not able to dilute in the fixed costs that we have in this unit. So the volume of sales was reduced and was not what we had expected within this unit of organominerals. Now going for the next slide in the part of selling, general and administrative expenses. When we continue to structure our company, so it was a period of growth in expenses. We are in a process to increase the commercial team and the administrative structure to support the operations. We had a positive year in the point of view of credit. The market is very net, So we ended up having a reversion in provisions in such a way that we have reached, and we even look here, this adjustment, we had two effects that did not happen in 21-22. But looking to the adjustments, we have grown our expenses in 12.5% through the year. This is a growth rhythm that was not what we had expected regarding our gross profit. And that is why we had an increase in the margin. Now going for the next slide, showing this increase in the EBITDA margin and an increase of our nominal one for the year that went from 176 million to 217 million in 22. So despite having a fourth quarter that is more challenging, we closed the year having an important growth in terms of EBITDA and gaining margin. Talking about CapEx, we continue with our investment plans. We are finalizing the phase 2 of biological plants. We are going to begin MPAP in this second quarter, and it will be operational to take care of the crops for 23-24. We even anticipated this announcement with the expectation that it would be delayed, but it was what ended up happening truly, but without prejudices for what we needed, which was to have this available capability for this harvest this crop 23-24, where we wait for a greater demand for biological products. And we are going to need an increase in capability in this line that is being expanded, which is the line for the solid fermentation. Now, talking in terms of cash flow and indebtedness, we had a favorable one here. Like I said, we had a very net part in this year, and we hope this happens in 23. The producer, despite having these problems in the increase of costs last year, we had great productions, rentability in these last years, and they have a favorable economic situation. So we had a great performance in terms of revenue. We are going to have a great performance in terms of the term for sales. And the stock, despite not being where we wanted to be, we had a reasonable performance. Little by little, we are going back to our natural level that we had pre-pandemic, remembering that the pandemic affected the need to keep the higher stocks in relation to all the problems of the interesting performance to generate cash, and consequently, we have closed the year with a position of these net debt with 148 million, and the one for 0.7%, a little bit inferior to 2021. So despite having the growth in terms of investments that we had, the distributions, and the capital needed for the growth of the year. So when we closed the year, we did not increase, we even reduced our level of debt. Talking about the final line here, in the fourth quarter, we had a favorable performance in terms of financial results and the fiscal part, which resulted us that despite not having the growth that we expected, we have delivered a net profit passing from 40.8 to 49 million. I even say that the part of income tax and social contribution was due to two launches that happened in the last quarter, which were very relevant, like the approval of JCP, which has an impact in the part of social contribution. And the other one is our investment related to the Lei do Bem, which enabled us to help in the tax basis of income tax and social contribution. And these two events happened in December. And when we talk about the accumulated performance of the year, we have delivered a year with an expressive growth in the net profit, going from 108 million to 147.5 million, with a improvement in the margin. So within all this challenging scenario, we were able to deliver a very favorable performance in terms of growth and net profit. Now I pass the floor to Henrique, so he can talk about our part of R&DI. Thank you, Alexandre, where Vittia continues to be firm and increase investments in research, development, and innovation. In 22, Vittia has invested 25,780,000 reals. We had an increase in relation to the previous year of 57%. Within this investment, the greater proportion of investments were in the line of biological products, and we have invested 18,741,000, an increase regarding the last year of 52%, and a smaller proportion, but also very important one, is to continue to invest in R&DI and fertilizers. We have invested 7,039,000 reals, and a growth of 71% regarding the previous year. When we have verified the relationship of the investment with the net revenue, Vittia has increased year per year. In 22, this has represented the investments that is 3% of the net revenue. Regarding the regulation of new technologies, in 22, Vittia regulated four new biological products, being them two new microbiological ones, that in this case were paravitoys to control those animals that cause problems for eucalyptus and sugarcane. We also have two microbiological projects, one based in a bacteria that mobilizes nutrients from the soil and made them available for the roots of plants, which was X, and another project that is microbiological on nematicide, microbiological one based in a fungus and parasite of nematoids' eggs. And nematoids have many prejudice for agriculture and in the world, in the national agriculture in the world. Another relevant fact in relation to the regulation were the new recommendations approved by MAC for our defensive producers. We had 11 new recommendations that were approved by MAPA, enabling to indicate our biopesticides for 11 new biological targets, among them diseases that cause prejudice to many crops in the national agriculture. I give back to Alexandre. So talking about the performance in the stock market, we continue to have a valorization in relation to our IPO that happened in September of 21. Now in March, we have 18 months in our IPO within the regulation of CVA to offer 476. From March, now we have the possibility of receiving in our basis. We hope that little by little, this public will contribute and participate in the capital from Vittia. We also had in the last quarter the maintenance of the repurchased stock without an alteration from what we had performed. And now we open the floor for the part of Q&A. Tiago will now give the instructions. We're going to begin the part of Q&A for investors and analysts. If you want to make some questions, please click in the Q&A button in the screen and write your question. We have some here, beginning with the question from Mr. Daniel Sasson, sell-side analyst from Itaú BBA. 3 questions. Good morning. Recently, you have altered the commercial structure of the company within Mato Grosso to reinforce the presence of the company in the state. Can you comment a little bit on the results of this initiative? Do you have a goal of how much you would like that the center-east part of the country represents in terms of the total revenue percentage? Second question. In the quarter, we have seen the line of biopesticide growing 35% year per year. In the year, this has grown 42%. This great growth is aligned with the increase of the relevance of biologicals, which is the segment with the greatest margin in the company. Can you give us a little bit of information? What was the break in price and what was volume? In the quarter, we have the line of organominerals and soil conditioners going down 67% and 22% in the year as a whole. We know that the scarcity of NPK, given due to the war, Russia and Ukraine, impacts this segment, but could you give us a little bit more information of what happened here? Thank you. Okay, let's go, Danielle. So 3 questions. So now let's begin with the first one. The issue of Mato Grosso, we have done a change, and this change had a very great sense. We had a work in Mato Grosso that was based on the great rural producers. We have there the giants from the Brazilian agribusiness. We have Bom Futuro, Bom Jesus. They are part of an SLC, and we were focused on this work. This is something that was implemented in the company a few years ago, and we thought that we needed to use this and do a different work there. So we did a change in terms of management of the area. We did a division of regional managers, and we sought to emphasize the personalized work within our distributions, also on top of the average producers, taking it in a more intense way, these new technologies. So when we look to the number of this region, Mato Grosso, in relation to what we had in 22 and 21, we did not have a great incrementation in terms of revenue, but we had an incrementation in terms of margin. But when you talk about this growth of biological products of 36 to 42%, in the end of the year, we did not have an incrementation in prices. This is truly incrementation in volume of sales. And in our part of organominerals, when we have, as we have said for a long time, the thing is, I think this is even important to highlight here. We in Vittia have a story of organominerals that is old. We have a unit here in Serrana, close to our bases in Ribeirão Preto. And this part of organominerals was always something that was very interesting for the company. We did an investment in the year of 2020, in the end of this year, where we acquired a unit in Patos de Minas. This unit had many challenges in terms of industry. It was a business that we did with an interesting price at the time. And actually, we entered in the year of 21 with great industrial challenges of functional organization of this new unit. And also we had, I said that agri has cycles. We'll have years that are good, regular ones, difficult years. And then we had the year of 21 where we see a pandemic. We had the beginning with the issue of the war of Ukraine with Russia. This truly has taken all the logic in terms of costs of NPQs, NPKs actually, and without a doubt, the great producers of NPKs, I say the miners, feeling that producer was going very well in terms of results, they wanted to participate in this. So they have changed the exchange relationship. They aimed for cash. It ends in oligopolium. And in 21, we had, let's say, a problem. It was a year with interesting sales. We had industrial challenges. And beyond that, we were surprised because we had been sold. And when we went to the market to seek these materials, we bought this with a much more expensive price. In 22, we adopted a policy where we did the adjustment in this unit of Patos, but it was not what we have here now. We have adjusted this unit now for the crop 23-24. We performed in business. We have, and then now we were surprised by clients in terms of cancellations. And we had adopted a policy of creating the hats, saying, oh, we have sold, now we're going to buy, let's work with these equations, with our requests. So truly being very clear here with you, we did not know how to farm well. We ended up not having a good performance. But the idea is the following. This market regulates itself, and when it regulates, it ends up being a favorable thing. That is why now in 23, as I said previously, we have the remembrance from the products that were bought in greater prices from what is happening now. So we do not have a great expectation in terms of results, mainly now in the first quarter in this line. But I am certain that with everything that was done in terms of industrial adjustments, commercial adjustments, administrative ones within this business, we will reach the end of this year much more structured in terms of results from what happened in 22. Now, the next question comes from Mr. Vitor Hugo, an investor. 2 questions. What do you expect for 2023 in these lines of organominerals, soil micronutrients, and industrials that went down in 22? How is the integration of Vittia? Do you have a operational difficulty? The second one, with the falling prices of chemicals in 23, what do you hope to have in the line of biopesticides? Are they going to follow this? Can we hope a similar growth to 22, or will it have a downfall due to the falling prices? Does this falling prices in chemicals also impact the margins? Vitor, as I said to Daniel, I think that we did the necessary adjustments to have a better performance in this part of organominerals. When we talk about the part of soil micronutrients, it has a very interesting characteristics. We have within Vittia a policy of not being a great offer of this market. This market has some particularities that we need to know. The great word here is to know how to pilot this plane. So last year in the part of soil micronutrients, what happened was that the cost for these products went up. And when you had the producer, the issue with the increase of costs, mainly remembering the NPK, what they did, they truly, even seeing this great growth in the costs of soil micronutrients, they have restricted their usage. This part of soil micronutrients has two important things: the opening of area, which is necessary, and then you're going to know the repositions in other areas. So since last year, the usage of these elements was smaller, we hope that the usage is going to be greater in the year of 23. There is no excess of products in the market, which is important. And we understand that we're going to have a great performance in the area of soil micronutrients. The part of salt, it's not what we focus on. The company at each moment tries to reduce doing a more effective work in this, because this ends up competing with products of greater technology with NVIDIA, and our focus with the structuring that we have been doing in the commercial sector is based on this. So we think that this is a line that will go alongside our work. We do not want to increase this line. So when you talk about the downfall of biopesticides, will there be a downfall in prices in biological products? Well, I think that this year will be one that possibly we will have a small downfall in the prices of biological products, but much more with the structuring that Vittia has done, it is reaching some markets that they did not work before with such emphasis. So automatically, this can reduce a little bit of our margins. I do not see chemicals hindering, because the distance is still very big when you do the relationship cost per hectare. So we do not see this, but I think that this year we're going to have a small downfall. But now we are waiting for the growth aligned with our part of biopesticides and also biological fertilizer, aligned with what happened now in the year of 22. This is, let's say, close to what we have performed in the previous year. Just to complement Wilson's answer in relation to the downfall of the biopesticides, I would like to reinforce that the incrementation and the downfall, where we had the greatest variations, were the area of herbicides, which are areas we do not have biological solutions. So glyphosate, which was a product that in the last quarter went down significantly. So this ended up not impacting us, because no project in the biologic line has a use compatible with the glyphosate. So just here to add a little bit. So in the line of chemical defensives, we're going to have a accommodation of prices, but in technologies which are competitive with us, they're not relevant with this issue of the downfall in prices. Our next question comes from Mr. Ricardo Ori, an investor. Regarding the financial result, can we understand that the loss of derivatives is swap from 4131? In practice, it is the cost of the debt, right? A thing that caught my attention is the value of passive tax and discounts. And so they are those given to clients. Given the magnitude, it does seem to be only the AVP of things we must pay when what happens to the actives and things we must receive. Let me try to answer here. We do not have the exposure of financing. Our operations are always swap. And since they are a swap, the result of these operations fall into three lines that you have said. First of all is in the passive fees, the debt in dollar, if we have 5-6% of the debt that we take in dollars, this 5-6% will go to the passive fees. Like that we have other operations. If the operation is not swap, it's in reals, the fees go within this line. And now we have the following. The money change in this area of dollar goes into this variation between the coins. We have the operation in dollar impacting the passive interest and the variation in money that we have. And then there is the swap where they do the compensation, let's say, of this money variation and beyond the complement in terms of spread. Remembering that if we take 5% in dollar and we have a money variation here in real, I will pay a CDI, our average is 1.8, 1.6. So to reach the 15% in reals, this difference will be in my result of swap operation that has both things. There is the spread within the swap and also the money variation that will counter this money variation that is in the line of the dollar debt. So this is how it works. But in the end, this is it. We have a debt that will go around the CDI, which what we have been taking is 1.5 in the CDI or 2 in the spread. Okay. Our next question comes from Mr. Cesar Galindo, an investor. The negative impacts in sales due to the elections are going to be reverted in the first quarter of this year? Look, you know that this issue of the elections truly had a problem with the agribusiness. Agribusiness has a strong positioning. There is a Bolsonarismo, which is a tendency for the previous government. So Bolsonaro government did a nice thing in relation to logistics, this issue of security of land, other positionings. So when we had this PT government, people was alarmed by this, and I think that this has changed. And it is what I said, we need to understand what this government is not talking, because it is a government that has a lot of issues, and we know that. What are they not saying to make agri feel more accommodated? Let's say we have seen positionings from governors. We had seen this in the positioning from the governors from Goiás, Minas, Sao Paulo, and other regions, giving this security for the producer in terms of land invasion. So there is without a doubt a concern, but the producer will need to plant, produce, to commercialize things. So we understand that throughout time, this will calm itself. There is still a concern, without a doubt. Yes, there is. And I think it's not a concern just from agribusiness. It is a concern from the market as a whole. Our next question comes from Mr. Pedro Fonseca, sell-side analyst from XP. 3 questions. The first one, you have a very comfortable level now. Please do comments about the comfortable level for the company of 2 to 2.5 more, and the market is more challenging in terms of acquisitions. What can we hope for in terms of money allocation? You have explained the dynamic of the downfall in solo micronutrients and organominerals. With the downfall around PQK, do you expect that 2022 you can recover the standards before the Russia-Ukraine crisis? And what do you expect for the growth per other lines in these years? So with the increase of R&DI in the year and in the quarter, does it implicate in the increase of the pipe for new launches, or what do you expect in the level of R&DI in the revenue of 2023? Well, Friso, if you want to talk about the first one, and then in the second one, and then Henrique says about the third question. Okay, well, without a doubt, the 0.7 of net debt that we had, that we closed the year, is not a healthy line. So we have an objective of seeking to increment investments. And I think that the sole way to bring this growth would be through M&A, but due to this change in the macro scenario of the country and also in the agri that happened in the period pre-elections and now, I think there is a period of understanding, let's say, from part of the people who purchase and those who sell. And we continue to monitor opportunities in the market, but in a more careful way, remembering that now we have another financial cost, low visibility in the downfall of prices. So it's not interesting to leverage excessively. So this changed everything, and it will take a while until the market can adapt itself to the reality. And I say market as the people who purchase and those who sell. You know that the buyer adjusts their prices automatically, and the seller does not have this instantaneous adjustment. So we hope that throughout the year, since things are becoming more consolidated for both buyers and sellers, we hope that we can reach interesting terms. And we will always be very careful, which is what I would like to say. So our main part of growth is the organic part. This needs to be an opportunity to give growth to the company. So this is our wish. But if we have to hold down the M&A, even though we have to seek other ways to bring this leverage, be it through distribution or to accelerate the repurchase programs, we are going to analyze them. We are not going to do M&A just to do it to leverage a company. That's it. We are not looking. So in a short term, M&As are not in a good scenario of being put in a way that we want. But I think that throughout this year, we are going to have a market going back to a normality, accommodating itself. Sorry. And then I'm going to pass the floor to you. But then, Pedro, talking about the part of micro and organic minerals, the parts of soil micronutrients we have within our planning a volume of growth despite having a certain downfall in the cost of the products. We understand that the market will be a more consumer one. And in the part of organominerals also, we have a growth in volume, but there was a very accentuated downfall in the cost of these products in the issue of the NPK. So we have a greater projection in terms of revenue, but greater than the revenue will be the volume that will be put in the market. Now talking about the last question on the increase of R&D in the year, the question if it is connected to the increase of the pipeline. No, it's not. It is related to intensification in the products of the pipeline. It is not related to the increase of projects. It's even related to another question that will come. In 2023, we created a policy of innovation and we reviewed some projects from our pipeline, and some of them were left in standby so we could focus them in another moment. And most of them, we have decided to intensify activities because we found strategies we need to advance better in developing other technologies that are in our pipeline. Our next question comes from Mr. Gabriel Barra, sell-side analyst from Citi. 4 questions, I think. First one, we have seen some M&A movements in the sector of biologicals recently, giving a greater focus of greater companies in the sector of inputs in this market. How do you see this movement, and is the scenario competitive? Second one, as Wilson said, we have seen a downfall in the prices of inputs in a general way. How will this impact the company's margin in 2023? Can we hope a smaller margin? Third one, Henrique, could you update us in relation to the pipeline of the company in relation to new products for this year? In the short term, in the medium term, any special focus? In the IPO, one of the main pillars of growth for the company is the organominerals business. What is the view of the company now? Can we still hope for a greater focus in this line of business in relation to the allocation of money and commercial effort? Okay, let's go. Gabriel, I think that later Friso can complement this issue of M&A, the part of biologicals. Well, we have not seen M&As effectively in the biodefenders. There is a issue that we discuss internally within the company about the issue of where people will mainly outside the country, they talk about bio inputs. So we have seen recently the Corteva doing the acquisition of Stoller, and this was a purchase of a company of biologicals. When we do not see it like this, because Stoller basically has one product, which is inoculant, a biological fertilizer. It has a biodefender, but a biodefender that is old and that has no great performance in the market. So there is a lot of speculation, talk, but it's not truly a true talk being transparent to you. We see movementations in these great companies trying to fit within this market. Will this happen? Yes, but it's not something simple. So answering a little bit about this issue of this M&A, Friso can discuss a little bit on this. Well, I think this is it. We are observing, I think that the issue of this M&As shows that the industries themselves of chemicals are already understanding that the biological came to stay with a relevant technology. But we understand, even due to the time that the market is now, that there was no movementation that would impact our core business of biologicals. So what Wilson has said of having bio inputs, we see outside the biostimulators being classified as biologicals, which for us in the foliar line. So we see, for example, products based on copper or sulfur being classified as bio inputs, and for us, it's not biological. Also, we even see some companies, not only outside, but here in Brazil, classifying organominerals as biologicals. And for us, they are not biologicals. We have seen a lot of movementation, but I think that in the core, we have not seen a movementation that would impact significantly our scenario, competitive scenario. What will happen is that, yeah, it will happen. By the end, like we have said, it's clear that the biological technology came to stay and they are going to seek their movementations. I think this will be natural. And Gabriel, when we see the downfall of prices, we see the entire chain going down with the prices, but we do not see a downfall in the margin. I think that the downfall in prices is not something that will avoid. I think that Henrique can say in the third issue that truly what you said when we have done the presentation of the market, we had within the thesis the issue of incrementation of our world in terms of organic minerals. We had done the purchase of Vittia, and we would see that we could continue with this in a faster rate. So, as I said previously, we have a unit for organic minerals that is for a long time. During this 1%, it was a business that has resulted in positive things, but we have a problem in 21, 22. So this is being left behind. No, we want to accommodate what we have internally so that later we can think in having enough plants for organic minerals. This is not being discarded. Gabriel, regarding the pipeline in the foreseeing the investments for 23, the pipeline, as I said, we did a review in the pipeline and we have intensified some projects. The projects that we had thought that were more strategical ones would be launched in a average to short term. For 23, we're going to have the regulation of products, technologies in the different acting lines of Vittia. We are foreseeing the regulations of biopesticides, biofertilizers, inoculants, but we cannot say names here because it depends on the approval of the regulating bodies, MAPA, MISA, and IBAMA. And we also have we foresee the regulation of biological targets in the same way that we have delivered in the last year the new biological targets. We foresee also this for 2023. Now, our next question comes from Mr. Marcelo Inoue, buy-side analyst. Good morning. What is the difference between the gross margin in the sale for great clients and smaller clients? Look, I do not have this now to pass to you, but obviously a great rural producer, a great client, will always have a condition of margin of prices and have a margin that is smaller within Vittia. I do not have the numbers here now to say to you what is this. It depends on the size, the case, the products, the portfolio. But that's it. What I can answer to you is that a great client always has a condition, a commercial condition that it is more favorable relating to another client, for example. Our next question comes from Mr. Mario Freire, investor. The line of biologicals has a lot of money, so could you exemplify some actions of marketing destined to encourage the usage from the part of producers? Look, Mario, it is a line that has a lot of profit in our operations, but when we do an analysis of the issues here, you have a lot of investment in CAPEX, this issue of biological products. This is a technology that is unique, and I think that each company has tried to seek what is most interesting in this process. You have there a time of being able to put this technology from the day that you do the prospection of clients and to put this in the market. This takes around 6 years. So this margin is preserved by throughout all this equation, this initial equation. And it is interesting, despite having here a margin that is good within this segment, we do not have more expensive product than the biopesticide. And what is happening when we enter this segment of biopesticides? It's a new thing. The chemical industry has been for a long time there, and the biopesticide has been here to beginning to do their work only 6, 7 years. So truly, it is a process of teaching. Let's say this is a great challenge we show every time to you the work that we have been doing in the selling force to truly take this and so that the producer has effectively the clear perception that this technology is the one that will solve their problem. I just quoted to you in the presentation. This year, we are taking 30 commercial fields, substituting them completely by the biopesticides. We began to harvest these fields. They're having a productivity result that is superior to those who use chemicals. And when we close our cash with the producer, this is more economic. So that's it. The use of biopesticides is growing, not only thinking about expansions due to issue of usage, but also in terms of efficiency. Our next question from Mr. Guilherme Avila, buy-side analyst from Tycon. Hello, congratulations and team for the results in the biologicals in the year of 2022. What is the view and expectations for 2023 in biopesticides? Retraction of the producer in the beginning of 23 could impact the year's dynamic? Look, Guilherme, I don't think so. We truly have a retraction in this quarter. We truly see the market that is concerned with the movements that happened. The market has a stock. We do not stock biopesticides because we cannot stock them or use them now or not, but there is a stock within the distribution of chemical defenders that is very good. They had a problem when they did this. This happens at each 5 year. We see this in a clear way. The part of fertilizers, some players in this game stocked a little bit the distributors, and we understand that the year of 23 will be a positive year in the biodefenders. So why is that? Because this technology is becoming clearer for the rural producer that it's more efficient than chemicals. So the producer at each time will understand this and will use technology. This is the work for each company. What we were in the process of opening, people were said, "Oh, but it's so good. Why do people do not use it?" Because we are fighting with an industry that is very old. So we need to show this. So that's why Vittia has been increasing every time their team, training this team in an intense way to have there. But we hope in a more tranquil way this year, a growth aligned with what we had in 22. Our next question from Ms. Guilherme Lanzoni from Lanzoni Futuros. The downfall in the revenue, specifically in Mato Grosso and Minas Gerais, was due to the loss of market share. And how was the line of biologicals in these states? Look, Guilherme, I even ended up answering. We had a work in Mato Grosso that was focused in great producers. We did a change in this way of work, so we ended up having a downfall in the revenue because we have diminished the sales of commoditized products. When we closed the number from Mato Grosso, we closed with results in terms of cash for Vittia revenue for Vittia, and the same movement happens in Minas Gerais, but it has an impact in Minas Gerais that is a little different. Minas Gerais, we have performed very well in our specialties, and we ended up diminishing our sales, even though to the cancellations in our line of organominerals. Remembering that our plant for Victory in organominerals is in Minas, and they have a ratio of 300 kilometers of acting. So the greatest part of Vitória, almost 90%, is Minas. So the downfall in Minas is connected to the downfall of organominerals, different from Mato Grosso, where we do not have the sales of organominerals, and which is due to the structuring of the team. Our next question comes from Mr. Cesar Galindo, an investor. Two questions. First of all, can you talk more about the scenario from other countries focused in this industry like chemicals? Second one, how do you see the growth of biologicals on farm? So says the competition is there in the same way that we are preparing ourselves. I believe that the competition are preparing themselves also. When we talk about the part of competence, it is one competition in chemicals. It's one that we need to demystify through technologies and showing effectively the efficiency of the business. But the competition is there. Certainly, it will try to seek the market as like ours. This is part of this. So let's be clear with you. With the farm, we believe that this project must, I'm not gonna say to you die, because some people will go to work on this. We have a history, or even of a company now that is a multinational called Laleman, which is a Canadian company originated in the Farroupilha lab, and this lab was bought by a rural producer that at the time wanted to have these technologies of biopesticides be based on bacteria or fungus, and he did a great work, professionalized the procedure, and this company began initially by helping him, and then he saw that to have products, he would need to have a great equation within this work with technicians, technology. Both, that's why his business evolved a lot, and he ended up selling this company to a multinational that has the issue of producing biological products for the sector of food and also agriculture. This was a reality. I believe that others that began with this, they can reach this standard, but the farm done being as it's done, it's not something that have a future. When we talk about the production of microorganisms, there is a lot of things. I think that's seeing, if you have an opportunity to be able to do a visitation here in Vittia, you will see that things are not empirical. There is a gigantic work, first of all, within the PDI, R&DI, and when you go to the fabrications, you'd have many variations that need to be considered so you can have a product. And in certain moments, the enzymes generated by these microorganisms is more important than the microorganism itself. So being very clear here, we do not see farm as a competition for us. One thing that I'm certain is that in this short space of time, we have seen in the production of inoculants, now we do not have no bio company that produces these inoculants now. And I think that this ends up with a short time. Our next question comes from Mr. Vitor Hugo, an investor. I understand that the microbiologicals are more challenging products with more smaller shelf life and margins. Can you comment on this as the JB and Agro 21? Do you think that new agents must go beyond the Cartesia and improve this scenario? This word is talking about specifically for Henrique. We have innovations in this sense. I think that he could talk to you. Okay, thank you, Wilson. Talking about technologies beyond Cartesia, we have many technologies that deliver complementations to the usage of Cartesia or substitute in some cases of management, controlling, for example, sugarcane, which has insects that have a lot of problem there. So now we have 6 microbiological defenders that are regulated. They're used throughout Brazil. Among these 6, 5 are parasites. We have a great portfolio of microbiologicals to be used in many cultures against many pests. So also talking about this, we are developing in our sector of RNDI new parasites and predators to complement the management of many pests and pests that are difficult to control, in which chemicals are not being able to be effective, like the control of some insects in soy. We are developing parasites that are very efficient in controlling these types of pests. So a lot of things will come, and the technology to liberate these parasites, predators, will add in the speed and efficiency in the usage of these microbiological ones in the crops. Our last question comes from Mr. João Pedro Lima, buy-side analyst from Unicapital. Could you comment on the expansion plan of the company in the South region and Mato Piba competitive markets? Given the predominance of cooperatives in the region, do you see a great alteration in margins versus regions in which you already act on? João, talking about the issue of the commercial expansion, it is interesting. It is a place that I am very happy to see here. We give a lot to seek partnerships, business. We, throughout the years that have passed, talking about the South region, they were challenging years, of course. You end up restricting the investments in people, in personnel. Now we are changing the regime, and we are seeing the announcement from El Nino in the place of La Nina. So El Nino in the place of La Nina. So we have a great expectation for the south in terms of the rain. So we have already done this movementation in the beginning of the year in terms of having a great adequacy in our part of professionals. And you gave an idea in the southern region, we also did a great investment of having a distribution center. You know that the southern region is a one with small producers. So we need to have a great dynamics in terms of logistics in products. That is why we ended up building a distribution center there. When we go to the Amapá region, it is a region that is increasing, and we have been implementing our actions in terms of hiring. There is one thing that I talk and say that we could double the Vittia teams in terms of field, but more than doubling it, we need to, a very certain word is to leave this team that we have and make it highly trained to develop within the field and disclose the technologies that Vittia has been deriving within the market. So this is a step-by-step work. You do not do this from one day to another. It is a market that now has a lot of a competition. We have a market that goes through good times. There is a great competition in the market, thinking about recruiting of people. So that's it. We are doing this work. This is a constant construction. And in the issue of the cooperatives, one of the greatest focus of our company truly is to have great presence in these cooperative companies. So the issue of being within them, it is the inhibitor of results. No, it's not. This is, well, truly you end up generating a scale and automatically you are going to dilute your fixed costs and improve the rentability of your company. Now we have closed the Q&A. We would like to pass the floor to Mr. Wilson Romanini to make the final considerations. Well, once more, good morning to you all. It's always a pleasure to be here talking about Vittia. I think that I would like to highlight that Vittia is a company that has been growing, that understands agros and understands innovation, that believes in people. And I think that the work that we are doing, we say this internally, we like to have a solid structuring, continuous structuring that generates sustainability for our business. That's what I wanted to tell you. And that's it. This is the story from Vittia. Now, this video conference is closed. The issue of relationships with investor is available to answer any other doubts and issues. We thank our participation and have a great day.